and welcome. This is Mary Ellen McGonagle with your weekly MEM Edge show. And as always, this is the show where we put you in front of where the action is in the broader markets. And certainly we had one of our last summer weeks, but lots going on beneath the surface. So let's go ahead and get started here. As usual, I am going to be sharing with you the broader markets, take a close look, make sure we're still in good standing there, and then also take a look beneath the curtain, as I say, to see where those monies are flowing into, so you can take advantage of that outperformance that's due to take place, of course. Gaps up on earnings and gapping up on other news. We're going to take a look at precedents. I know I've done this in the past, but there have been some newer names that have gapped up this past week, so you'll want to use that precedent as a potential way if you're inclined to play the gap up on the news. Also, trends that are taking place and have taken place in earnings. We will get a little bit more into that. And cryptocurrency plays. Bitcoin didn't do a whole lot this week, but there are subsequent side companies that either provide services or platforms to cryptocurrency that are on the move. I will go ahead and share that with you. And then as always, base breakouts. We can't leave that out of the mix today. So lots to cover. Let's go ahead and take a look at the broader markets. This is a daily price chart of the S&P 500, and we can see that it's remaining in this very nice uptrend. We did get a little bit of a dip today. Actually, I'm going to just take one brief minute and go ahead back because I want to share with you some of the news that came out this week. Sometimes that can be quite helpful. Consumer confidence dipped. Consumers are a little bit fearful of the Delta variant spread as well as inflation. So we may see an impact down the road as it relates to some of these retailers and consumer discretionary stocks. August private jobs data did come in weaker than expected. And then, but we did get positive news as far as on the manufacturing side. We saw production increase in August, so that is good news. And factory orders also increased in August. So we're seeing that nice expansion continuing to take place in the economy. However, today we did see the month of August was the smallest increase in job posting in 7 months. So that was very impactful in the sense that a lot of the decreased job increases took place in areas such as restaurants, hospitality related with that Delta spread. The markets today did originally sell off, but were able to recover nicely, which is constructive. And then next week, holiday shortened week, but we get a couple of items there with that weekly jobless claim number on Thursday, and then producer price index on Friday. So let's go ahead and get back and review the broader markets again. As mentioned, we are in a very nice confirmed uptrend. We can see the RSI trending upward above that 50 area there. Stochastics also trending upward in positive territory. So overall, the momentum is really taking shape in a very nice uptrend as it relates to the S&P 500. So from here, we can take a look at those 11 sectors underlying within the S&P 500. And as always, we're looking at a 2-month daily price chart. And I like to add this RSI. That's a relative strength indicator. We can sort that by descending. So up here on the upper left, we can see your relative outperformers, again, where those money flows are going, and REIT stocks continuing to power to new highs. There are a number of names in that area, but for my work, I do tend to gravitate toward these higher growth areas, healthcare, technology, a number of really vibrant sub-industry groupings there. Communication services are continuing to meet up here at the forefront. Of course, Google close to new highs, Facebook as well, and then some underlying stocks that are continuing to do well due to digital advertising sales that are really quite strong. And on the weaker areas, we can see down here in the lower quartile, XLE is energy, and we're still waiting for that industry group to turn positive. The group was down for the week, but ideally, in order to expand the move into some of these oil stocks, we'd like to see a move back up above this 50-day simple moving average. Your RSI dipped back below the 50, so a little bit negative there. So still waiting for firming up, although oil prices were up. We'll get into that next. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that right now. From here, we'll take a look at some of the sub-industry groupings within the S&P 500. So now we have the NASDAQ, the Dow, small caps, and a host of other very relevant, certainly to my work, ETFs that we can look at to see how the markets are doing and where we're seeing that strength. So let's take a look. We can see that I'm going to start with the NASDAQ because it had another very strong week, up 1.5% this week, and that's relative to the S&P up about 0.5%. So we can see the NASDAQ just powering to new highs. A lot of that, of course, is those select FANG stocks. There is a gravitation toward those larger cap growth stocks as kind of a safe way to play this economic expansion, but there's lots of other areas as well. Let's go back and take a quick peek here because this first ETF is IGV. That's a bellwether technology software ETF, and you can see really how strongly it is. It was propelled about 2 weeks ago into this nice uptrend. A lot of these companies are reporting very strong earnings. And of course, the cloud-based cloud-based companies are coming in with some of the best earnings. And we can see again that nice uptrend. I'm going to share with you a name in this group that broke out of a base today that looks really quite attractive among other candidates. Of course, if you haven't already, go ahead and try on my MEM Edge biweekly report. You can use that link below, and I'll share with you some of my other favorite stocks in that industry group. We can also see semiconductors up here at the forefront. It did hit a new high earlier in the week and has since pulled back. Not all subgroups in semiconductors are participating here. There's one particular group, I'm going to share a stock or two from that one group that in semiconductors is the clear winner, clear outperformer. So actually, so there are nuances beyond some of these industry groups that it can really help to pay close attention because those are the names that are really clearly outperforming. A number of the other semis are in downtrends. They're still not quite reversed. So we can also take a look at some of these other groupings. Bank stocks are struggling a bit. We can see this is the regional banking index down about 2.5%, but some of the larger bank stocks are holding in just fine. They're really continuing to look quite constructive. So from here, I will go ahead and share with you some of the areas that we talked about. And first up, what I did want to share with you, we can go ahead to this first page on StockCharts.com, and actually, I believe I have it up already. So this is a daily price chart of Bitcoin to US dollar. We can see it had this nice reversal, very significant rally, I believe perhaps 60% from this level up to the peak. A natural digestion period of consolidation, but Bitcoin may be setting up again for another leg up as it has broken out of this flat to, let's see, probably about a 2-week base there. So what I'm going to do from here is just share some of these other companies that either provide infrastructure or technology that are looking rather constructive. First up is Coinbase. Some of you may be familiar. This was an IPO stock. Let me see if I can get my IPO, but I think we have relevant viewing here. So we can see Coinbase after its IPO did deteriorate a bit, But let's take a look at the base breakout that is setting up right now for the company. They do provide, again, infrastructure, financial technology for the cryptocurrency space. They're viewed as quite the leader in the cryptocurrency infrastructure space. But what we are looking at is the right side of the space is being formed. Ideally, we'd like the stock to get up closer to that 295 level. We're currently at 280, but we are seeing this MACD black line up through the red. RSI is positive and setting up again quite nicely. And I'll share with you a couple of other names here as it relates to cryptocurrency. First up, we can take a look at payment processing companies that provide, actually, let's take a look at PayPal, that also offer cryptocurrency. You can buy, sell, and even pay for goods, for instance, on PayPal. Now, PayPal did hit a new high here. This gap down is earnings related. So, but more recently, we can see the stock is attempting to reverse that downtrend, to break back above that 50-day simple moving average. We did see nice volume here. MACD, we had that black line up through the red crossover and just getting into positive territory and a positive RSI. So setting up, I would put this on your watch list. And from here, we can take a look at some of those semiconductor stocks that I mentioned that are in leadership subgroupings. NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA has a lot in the way of industries that they work with, whether it's gaming, cloud computing, and so forth. However, they do also provide to the cryptocurrency community, and we can see this double bottom formation that took place here. You like to see higher lows, and then more recently, 2 weeks ago, a nice base breakout on huge volume, and then this pullback to this 10-day simple moving average proved to be an ideal buy point for NVIDIA. This has been a big winner for subscribers to my MEM Edge report. They came out with very strong earnings last month and setting up for continued outperformance. Another semiconductor name that also is well evolved as far as their products, but does work with that cryptocurrency community, is AMD. Now, this stock is not as constructive. It did have this super extensive move here, all about earnings, hit a new high. It is still appearing to be in the throes of digesting this very significant advance. It is doing so on lighter volume. That is good news. Your RSI stayed positive, also good news. But we're going to want to see that black line up against above the red, signaling that this current period of consolidation has shifted into an uptrend. We're going to take a brief break. When we get back, lots more to cover. Hi, this is Mary Ellen McGonagle, author of the MEM Edge report. In my bi-weekly report, I highlight top growth stocks as they enter buy zones, and I educate subscribers on why that stock is attractive both technically and fundamentally. In addition, you'll be alerted to when it's time to exit that stock based on negative technical action. And this bi-weekly report gives you confidence by providing fundamental insights into why an area of the market is strong and which companies within that strong area have the best growth profiles that'll help propel that stock higher. Subscribers to the MEM Edge report are benefiting from my expertise in uncovering top performing growth stocks. Subscribe now to take advantage of my special trial offer. And we are back. I mentioned that I would go ahead and share with you themes that we're seeing, certainly earnings related. There are still companies that are due to report, although most of the Q2 earnings season is behind us. We can take a look at, and it's also tying in with that concept of gapping up on earnings. So what I am going to do from here is share with you stocks that gapped up about at least a month ago, so we can get a sense of the potential move out of that gap up. So a couple of things that make a gap up very constructive when they do occur. This, of course, was earnings related. Lending Club LC is the ticker, but number one is this huge volume characteristic that we are seeing here. We did get that nice momentum indicator shift into upside. And then also when you have a base breakout on that gap up, very, very constructive. So from here, you'll see 2 or 3 events that can occur from that gap up subsequent. One is a continued advance of the stock to new highs as that 10-day eventually catches up. We can see this little blip here. This was a pullback in the broader markets, but LC is back again, having broken out of a 3-week base this week, and then the black line up through the red signaling another potential upside for the stock. Another company that came out in late July that gapped up is Max Linear, semiconductor name. We can see again huge volume, causes a base breakout. Actually, let's make sure. Yep, base breakout there, positive momentum. This is that shift that you like to see, and it's occurring from a nice low level, very similar to LC. It continues to advance, pulls back orderly to this 21-day moving average, and then continues its uptrend. So from here, what I do want to share with you are some stocks that are actually, I'm going to begin by sharing with you a name that did gap up on earnings, but what you're going to want to be on the lookout for as it relates to a fizzle. So this is Nike, one of the first. They actually came out in June. So once we have these gaps up, you can see continues to advance, pulls back to the 21, and then goes into an uptrend. So at some point, we are well into a 2-month advance out of that gap up. And so what we can see is an eventual what may occur. Now, this is just using precedence for what to be on the lookout for when the stock peaks in price. Now, here with Nike, we can see that it begins to break below these key moving averages. And then once we break below this 21-day, in line with the RSI turning negative, and we got pretty big volume there as well. Now we're going to start to have upside resistance with these shorter term moving averages trending lower. Your resistance will be at potentially lower levels. So this is the down the road eventual what to be on the lookout for. So let's take a look at some of these newer gaps up. First up, I'm going to share a stock. Those of you subscribers to my MEM Edge report, you are going to be very familiar with this one. We did pick DKS up back here, noted that it had this prior gap up after Q1 earnings, but this more recent gap up on earnings was truly great numbers, well into management guided higher, well into next year. So we can see the gap up and the subsequent rally in DKS, huge volume characteristics. Now we can see the MACD at this point really is quite stretched up there in the upper portion of its trading range. From here, I like to drill down into a 1-hour intraday because it is going to get a little bit nuanced as the stock continues to mature. So here's your initial gap up and what you can be on the lookout for to enter the stock, as oftentimes they do trend higher. This is what I've been advising in my newsletter, a continuation, and it has rallied about 14% subsequent to this gap up. So from here, we can see we're in good standing super near term above the shorter term moving averages. I'm going to be on the lookout for a nice black line up through the red to signal further near term upside. Let's take a look at another fairly recent gap up on earnings. I'm sure many of you saw this because the Friday before this Monday gap up on my show, I was this was one of two stocks I highlighted simply because it had pulled back before earnings, so it had further upside potential due to this lower valuation. So we got that gap up. It did break out of a very lengthy base as well as the shorter term base, and then we are having that continuation rally. But again, that MACD up here, at some point you can go back to historical precedent as far as what to be on the lookout for a potential pullback. And then another recent stock, and I'm sharing these with you because they potentially could have further upside. Williams Sonoma, not as constructive when you see it fizzle and close the day below at the lowest reaches of its range. And then also we are closing this gap. So I am going to pass on this particular name, but I did have another name that actually reported recently that bellwether. This is Salesforce CRM, but again, a little bit sloppier. We are pulling back, closing that gap, so not quite as interesting. And I wanted to see if I can, I apologize, I did have one other name that very recently did gap up, and hopefully it'll get to me before the end of the show because I want to share it with you given the precedent of what we've seen as far as the ongoing move, potential move beyond that. So let's go ahead and move on. I talked about base breakouts, of course, one of my favorite subjects, if you will. And what I wanted to do is share with you some names, in fact, two stocks that broke out today. And first up is Deere, DE, of course, bellwether name in the industrial space. And I'm going to mark this one up to share with you what we are seeing. So this is breaking out of this nice 1 month base today, and we can see your outside momentum indicators are positive, and we got some nice volume on today's base breakout. The company reported earnings right here, that first positive bar toward the end of August. The numbers were very, very strong, and the stock actually did again break out of this space. But what I'm now on the lookout for with Deere is a potential base breakout at 400. And the reason there is historical precedent tells us that the longer your base breakout, the longer your potential advance out of that base. And one other news item relative to Deere is that Goldman came out. They were actually upgrading a peer, AGCO, but it was all about the multi-year upcycle that Goldman is seeing in the agricultural business. So that was one name. We can also take a look at another base breakout here today. This is on earnings, if I can get the ticker symbol right here. And it is DocuSign, DOCU. Now, we did not get that gap up, but we certainly got a very nice advance up over 5%. Let's just take a look here. Some of the other dynamics, and we can see very big volume, getting that nice MACD crossover, and then your RSI trending upward. And then ideally, this is another one if we could get up to that 314 level and see a nice base breakout that would signal further potential upside. We can also go ahead and just take a quick peek here. The intraday. Now, I will say most of the move in this stock was in the first, well, in this case, 30 minutes. We're looking at a 15-minute chart, but the stock is holding up quite well, closing the day above this 5 and 13 simple moving average. Your outside momentum indicators are positive, so keep this one on your radar. Let's take a look at a couple other base breakouts. Actually, that gap up came to me, so I'm just going to backtrack just a little bit here because it is worth noting. This is Baxter, BAX, and of course, many of you may be familiar with this particular company. Now, it is not the prettiest chart. Interesting that I have another charting service that I use as well, and it looked a little more interesting there. But it did reverse its downtrend on the gap up. It's buyout news related, big volume, so perhaps not worth the look back there. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these other base breakouts that are taking place. I'm going to share with you a utility stock, Nextira, NEE, and many of you may have noticed that utility stocks, many of them are really outperforming the broader markets. This is, as mentioned, Nexteria, NEE, and we can see it had this nice 2-week base breakout this week. It is conventional electricity, but a lot of it is alternative energy, and we can see that with this base breakout, we are potentially getting that black line up through the red, so potential further upside there. One other name that we can take a look at on this base breakout is SWCH, and really it's taking us full circle to that gap up, because not all gaps up will advance immediately right away. Some of them will pull back. Now this is SWCH Switch Inc. And you can see for a company of its size that it's about a $4 billion smaller. This kind of gap up is just super big news. It went from 20 all the way up to 25. So very significant a move for a company of this size. So it will have more of a tendency to pull back. But what we are seeing subsequent to that is this week, a nice base breakout. So oftentimes these stocks will reset. Analysts will continue to revise their estimates higher, which will in turn bring the buyers back in, and potential another leg up. Keep that on your radar screen. And then one other base breakout, and actually this is a cup with handle base breakout and a little bit of a smaller company as well. And what I wanted to share with you, it's called AppLovin, and they do provide a platform to create apps. And what we can see, it's actually 29 billion, so it's not that small in size, but it is an IPO. So they did come out public back here. And what I wanted to point out to you is this cup with handle base breakout here. And so we have that nice cup formation, and we can see that this handle here, get rid of that arrow, and we can see that it did have this nice, now of course I want the arrow, cup with handle base breakout, and we got some nice volume there as well. So this company has pretty big growth prospects, so definitely worth keeping on your radar screen. One other name that we can take a look at, that a stock that is close to breaking out, so more for your radar screen, SMTC. And actually this is a back to that gap up, but it is a technology 5 billion smaller semiconductor stock, big gap up, big volume here. And I like the fact that today it's holding in really quite well. So again, going back and drilling down to the intraday after these gaps up can be really quite helpful. So it's just holding in, marking time, digesting this big move. So I would say keep this one on your radar screen as a stock that is potentially poised to trade higher. And I think I do have time for one other base breakout stock, and this is Signet. And the company really has seen huge growth. Interestingly, during this pandemic, there has been an increase in engagements, and otherwise, I guess people are moving a little bit faster given that they are and have been locked down. So SIG just reported earnings. We had that nice gap up into a base breakout, nice volume characteristics, and the stock really held in well. So I would certainly keep that on your radar as well. So everyone, I hope you have a wonderful long weekend. Go ahead and hit that like button if you like what you've seen. And as always, use that link below. I have a special for my MEM Edge report. You'll be able to get even further behind the curtain, and I'll reveal with you some of my top picks going into September. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you next week.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.